Welcome back. All right, so before tonight's busy schedule gets started, I wanted to get this video done for all you fine people on the internet. Just in case the 13 games tonight aren't that interesting to you. I don't know why that would be, but hey, here we are. So the Norris Trophy on the board here and arranged by the order that the NHL.com, their staff, they went through and they used a point system for who they felt were the best defensemen in the game. And Cale Makar's name's at the top. Now, if you're an analytics person, you're going to come in with, hey, he's much less effective when he's away from McKinnon than he is with McKinnon. This is true. Does that lend itself to the idea that Quinn Hughes deserves a little more consideration than Makar? You guys can have that debate. I'm known as a Canuck fan, so if I say Hughes over Makar, there will be those who say, hey, that's not fair. He's a Canuck fan. Makar, 44 games, 13 goals, 36 assists, 49 points. His points per game is actually lower than Hughes right now. His plus minus is plus 12, and I only bring plus minus onto the board because it gets used a lot for defensemen. His ice time, 25 minutes and 40 seconds per game, is the highest number, second highest number, I should say, on the board. Makar's an excellent defenseman. I think the criticism of his defensive game is overblown a little bit. A little bit. I'm not saying entirely, but a little bit. But he's a very good, intense player, and his offensive skill is pretty hard to match. Which brings us to Quinn Hughes. 38 games played with the Canucks, 9 goals, 38 assists, 47 points. A plus 15, playing 25 minutes and 17 seconds per game. And if you've watched the Canucks this year, you know he's their MVP. You could make an argument for Quinn Hughes that he should be in the Hart conversation. I would say he should be at least around that conversation. I don't know that I'd put him in there, but he should be at least, I would think, top 10. Does top 10 work? No, doesn't work? All right, fine. Anyways, Quinn Hughes' numbers have been good, but Zach Werenski should not be overlooked. 43 games, 13 goals, 35 assists, 48 points. He's a plus 8. 26 minutes and 33 seconds per game. He is the Columbus blue line, basically. With no offense meant to anybody else on that blue line. They have some good players, but Werenski is just head and shoulders above everybody else. Which with Makar, he's got Taves. With Hughes, Hronik, and with Werenski, there are good defensemen there, but to me personally, Werenski is head and shoulders above everybody else. And so I think Werenski could come along in this second half of the season and end up stealing the trophy for himself. If Columbus can keep up the hot streak they've been on lately, I don't see any reason why not. And I think it'd be fun to see Werenski get a Norris Trophy. Not to mention a Columbus Blue Jacket winning a major award. We wouldn't have seen that coming before the season started. Then you got Josh Morrissey, 44 games, 5 goals, 34 assists, 39 points, a plus 11 on the Winnipeg Blue Line. His ice time, 24 minutes and 12 seconds per game. I've loved Morrissey's game for a very long time. I think that the fact he plays in Winnipeg means he might get a little less attention than he would if he played for Toronto or the Rangers or the Blackhawks. But Morrissey's an excellent defenseman in his own right. He should have a Norris Trophy before his career's done. And this is where it gets tough because there are a lot of really good defensemen in the NHL. And so while everybody wants to squabble over Makar and Hughes, I would point out there are a lot of very good defensemen in this league. I think there's an embarrassment of riches there. Victor Hedman, 39 games, 6 goals, 26 assists, 32 points. He's a plus 9 on the Tampa Blue Line, playing 23 minutes and 16 seconds per game. Hedman is not as dominant as he was, say, 5 years ago, but he's still a very good defenseman, and he should have some consideration. He's had a bit of a bounce back offensively this year in the absence of Sergachev. A lot more of the offensive responsibility has fallen back on his shoulders. He's done excellent. He's done very, very well with it. Hedman, if he has a strong second half of the season, I would say, yep, dark horse. Shea Theodore in Vegas, a very talented Vegas blue line. 42 games, 4 goals, 31 assists, 35 points. He's a plus 4. I'm surprised his plus minus isn't a little higher. 21 minutes and 46 seconds per game. So one thing that would work against Theodore might be that he plays the least amount of minutes of anybody who's on this board. But what works in his favor is he's playing in Vegas. He's going to get a lot of attention. They are the top team in the standings right now. And so, yeah, Shea Theodore is one to keep an eye on in the second half of the season, too. Rasmus Dahlin, 35 games, 6 goals, 25 assists, 31 points. And he's a plus 2, playing in Buffalo. Dahlin got more attention when he had that fantastic start to the season. Was it last year? I think it was last year. But 24 minutes and 32 seconds played per game. Dahlin's an excellent defenseman in his own right. Not likely to be a finalist, but at some point in time, he should get a Norris Trophy, I would think. Which brings me to John Carlson. Because every Caps fan will say, hey, Carlson deserves one too. And you're not necessarily wrong. 43 games, 3 goals, 24 assists, 27 points. A plus 16, which is very good. 23 minutes and 58 seconds per game. Carlson might be getting older. I would say he's not dropping off in terms of his overall play. Carlson might be one of the best defensemen from his era. And I would consider it to be, same era as like Hedman, who hasn't won a Norris Trophy. He's been a finalist. He hasn't won a Norris Trophy. So for Carlson, maybe at some point we see it happen. Think about like the Vezina with Marc-Andre Fleury. Eventually he got one. Maybe at some point, maybe Washington has a great second half, finishes first overall, and John Carlson's a big part of it. And he forces his way into that conversation and gets a win. But yeah, the odds are kind of high against him. So other defensemen that got consideration. Chychrun, who's having a great year for Washington. Chychrun's great year might hurt Carlson in the end because you might split the vote between the two. Maybe one person might go, well, Chychrun's a better defenseman than Carlson on that team. So Chychrun might get the consideration that Carlson doesn't, and vice versa. Carlson's the best defenseman on that team, so I'm not going to throw a vote towards Chychrun. Brock Faber in Minnesota. Obviously, there's going to be some consideration there. Depending on how long he's out with injury, I haven't seen a return date with Faber yet, but I mean, he's skating, so maybe he's not that far off. But Faber, at some point in his career, maybe he ends up being in this category here. Evan Bouchard in Edmonton, the one thing people are going to point out is the defensive side of the game would hurt Bouchard. I think Bouchard's probably better defensively than he gets some consideration for. But yeah, there is the occasional turnover, and sadly, sometimes they're very prominent turnovers that would work against that vote. And Pietrangelo in Vegas also got a point in the voting. So the ones in black here are the ones that at least got a point in the voting from the NHL.com poll. Pietrangelo's had a good year, but that's one thing that might work against Theodore, that you have a very, very good defense core there in Vegas, which might prop up Theodore's numbers just a little bit because there's no one defenseman that's being leaned upon, as one could make the argument with Hughes, Werenski, I think to some extent Morrissey too, but that's one thing that could hurt Makar as he plays with Taves. Taves had a rough start to the season too, but right now they both seem to be pretty well, playing up to their potential. And then there's others that didn't get a vote that I wanted to mention here, which includes Adam Fox. Where's the love for Adam Fox? Adam Fox is an excellent defenseman in his own right. Ranger fans are going to point out he doesn't get that respect. One thing that might hurt Fox is look at the Rangers' defense in general, right? So that's gonna be thrown on Fox too. That defense core's looked bad. I haven't put any of it on Fox personally. I know I haven't talked about a turnover by Fox leading to a game-winning goal. I think I would remember that. I don't know. I'm old. Maybe I'd forget. But I think Fox has had a good year. Just being on the Rangers' blue line probably hurts his likelihood. Hudson, people may not be as likely to vote for a rookie, and this is where people are going to point out Hudson, the defensive side, which you're going to get a lot with a lot of these guys, but Hudson at some point in time might force his way into the conversation too. Sergachev in Utah, and I mean, I threw his name on the board because he has definitely been very good in Utah, and he's shown he's a go-to guy. Probably not Norris level at this point, but I think he's noteworthy to have on the board. Harley in Dallas. While Heiskanen might be the best defenseman they have, Thomas Harley is a legitimate, excellent young defenseman himself. So kind of an embarrassment of riches there for Dallas, and then you've got Harley and Heiskanen. Forsling in Florida. It wouldn't be a discussion of the Norris without Forsling's name being mentioned, would it? So Forsling's name's on the board. His plus-minus numbers have dropped from last year. His overall, like last year at this time, there was starting to be like this groundswell of, support for him. I haven't seen as much for Forsling this year as last year. And as you can see, he's not on the radar for the staff from the NHL site. And again, keeping in mind that it is the press who vote on all this, so you're kind of beholden to what they think. McNabb in Vegas. I wanted to have McNabb on the board because his plus-minus is fantastic. His defensive play is excellent. And if we were giving out, say, a Rod Langway award for best defensive defenseman, McNabb's in that consideration. So's Ryan McDonough from Tampa. So I talked about Hedman and turning back the clock. It feels like McDonough's done that as well. I think he's been very good for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And so I'd be interested to know your thoughts. I've done the video before too on, how it feels like every team has at least one really excellent defenseman. There may be a video on that before the season is done. Wouldn't be surprised if I throw that together at some point too. So look forward to that. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. And who would you give the Norris to if you were voting today? Thanks for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.